What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. Last time, we saw everything that happened in the scenario for the rest of Z, as well as what happened once Beerus finally woke up. After all his time training, Kakarot's actually made a few new friends by this point. Besides just Krillin and Tenshinhan, we introduced Pycon to the story, and also teased Upa being part of it too. Despite him being so separated from Earth, Kakarot's actually got some good connections to Earth, as well as some good friends in Otherworld. Without a doubt, that's going to affect the story going forward. For this part, let's hit a like goal of 3,500 likes. Once we hit that, I'll continue with another part to the series. Anyways, let's pick up from here. As discussed last time, once Kakarot left to train with Beerus, it appears that there's a vacancy for Shin and Kibito. They can train someone else now. They already have Ten and Krillin on the planet. But now, Pycon's gonna join too. It's crazy, he's heard of this place and of the Supreme Kai, but he never would have actually expected to be here. What's even crazier is Shin realized that Pycon is actually stronger than Krillin and Ten here. So he's got a head start right away. Not to mention since he's dead, he's kinda advantaged in terms of stamina. So not only does he fit right in, but he hits the ground running. Another interesting point is that Elder Kai is now there, freed from the Z-Sword. These students are actually pretty interesting to him. He's not too involved in the training, but he definitely sees the potential in these three fighters. It gets him thinking, maybe he can help these fighters grow. He does have his own methods, of course. And they seem pretty worthy of it. He continues observing them, wanting to see how they grow to make sure that they actually deserve this. Of course, while this is all happening on the Sacred World of Kais, Kakarot is still with Beerus. His training's going pretty well with Whis. He's already gotten a lot stronger, and it seems he has a grasp on God Ki. But of course his life can't be all training. He does want to take a break once in a while, and asks Whis if he could take him to King Kai's planet. Well, a break might be good for him, so Whis agrees. They're glad to see each other. It's been a while since Kakarot's seen King Kai. I mean, think about it, King Kai's basically his adoptive dad. It's not the usual master-student connection that they had before. Kakarot's excited to show off his new power, and King Kai has something to show too. Out of King Kai's house, somebody walks out. It takes a bit for Kakarot to recognize him, but then he realizes who it is. It's that other student Roshi had, Upa. This is the first time Kakarot formally gets to meet him, besides just seeing him in passing during the Buu saga. This is definitely a surprise. King Kai has a new student, and it seems Upa moved up here pretty fast. Much like Krillin and Ten did, he worked his way up the realm of gods. And within no time at all, he ended up training with King Kai. His progress has been pretty good. Roshi taught him well, and he seems pretty motivated. Upa's glad to meet Kakarot. He's heard a lot of good things about him, and now he finally gets to actually fight him. Wait, fight him? Yeah, he asked Kakarot if he wants to spar. And I mean, do you think Kakarot's really gonna turn that down? No, he isn't. He's surprised to hear it, but he agrees. Although Kakarot's gonna have to hold back a lot. Right away they start off in base just to test their power, with Kakarot suppressed. As he uses more power, Upa then goes into Kaioken, using ×2. So he's already learned this technique. Kakarot chuckles and does the same, with the two of them controlling it flawlessly. Upa goes into ×4, and Kakarot jumps back. Alright, he's not gonna play around anymore. He transformed into Super Saiyan. Amazing Upa. Naturally, Upa's kinda disadvantaged. I mean, Kakarot's an alien, while Upa's just a human with no transformations. All he has is the technique Kaioken. While Kakarot has access to this, but Upa's not gonna back down. He cranks up Kaioken all the way, to ×20, but even with that, he's disadvantaged, although he continues the fight. Kakarot commences persistence. And Upa asks if this is Kakarot's full power. King Kai knows Kakarot has Super Saiyan Kaioken, but he wonders if this is the extent of Kakarot's power as well. Alright, well just for show, he goes into Super Kaioken, just as King Kai expected. This power is way higher than anything Upa could ever achieve. Although it's a fleeting power, Super Kaioken isn't necessarily easy to handle. He can't use it for long periods of time. But surprisingly to King Kai, Kakarot says that this isn't his limit. Beerus and Whis have been watching the whole time too. This thing is pretty impressive, but he's no match for Kakarot. Beerus nudges King Kai, saying he's gonna want to see this. He, yes, Beerus, helped Kakarot access this new power. Whis butts in saying that he did all the work, but Beerus takes the credit. King Kai's student never ceases to amaze him, as he watches Kakarot begin to transform. Kakarot's surrounded by a fiery red aura, as slowly, the shade of his hair begins to change. Unlike the explosive transformation that Super Saiyan is, this one seems a lot more calm. His aura changes, then his hair turns red, with his eyes doing the same. Kakarot introduces this as Super Saiyan God, his newest evolution in power, and his strongest form. It's so weird. Upa can't sense any ki coming off him, but he can tell that the presence itself is overwhelming, and King Kai can surely tell that this is a strong form, actually being able to sense it. Upa asks if Kakarot wants to continue the fight, and Kakarot agrees. The both of them know that Upa will lose this, but he just wants to see the extent of Kakarot's power. He lunges at Kakarot with his full speed, shooting past Kaioken ×20 and even going into ×40. He rapidly punches and kicks Kakarot, but he easily dodges everything. Upa continues doing this, not landing a single hit, until Kakarot catches one of his fists. He tells the human that he's impressed. He has some great potential and drive. But it's clear that even with that, he's overwhelmed here, with With one hit, he knocks Upa out, finishing the fight as the two intended. Kakarot spent some time on the planet, catching up with King Kai and getting to know Upa some more. He's glad that King Kai's found a new student, and King Kai's glad to see how strong Kakarot is now. No matter where he is, Kakarot continues growing, and that puts King Kai at ease. Eventually, Kakarot does head back to Beerus's planet, and everyone resumes their normal training for the time being, until a certain someone comes to Universe 7, that being Champa. The Universe 6 tournament happens, and as you could guess, the team's going to be very different this time. The only constant is Kakarot, who isn't even the same as Goku. As for the other 4 fighters, Krillin, Ten, and Pycon are recruited, with Kakarot deciding to ask Upa if he wants to join too. That makes 5 fighters, and they're all pretty confident. The tournament itself starts, and Upa's actually the first up, facing Botamo. It's so weird because this guy isn't fazed by any of his attacks. But Upa realizes that this guy is stretchy too. That may have its perks, but it might also be a disadvantage in fighting. Upa grabs onto one of Botamo's arms, and Botamo wonders what he's up to. Still unfazed, Upa goes into Kaioken, and with his feet, he creates a ki blast, quickly propelling him back to the other side of the ring. As he flies back, Botamo's arm stretches with him. Botamo can't pull his arm back because Upa's just too strong, and instead, this causes him to be slingshotted out of the ring, being defeated in this one swift motion by Upa. Not only is he strong, but he's smart. Although next he faces Frost. In Frost's first form, he's not too much of an issue, but Frost realizes that this guy's taking the fight very seriously. He could just poison him, but instead, Frost decides to transform, not going into his final form but his assault form. He begins getting the upper hand until Upa activates a new stage of Kaioken. Going into times 20, being able to keep up with him. Frost needs to maintain his demeanor, but he's a bit annoyed. So swiftly, he decides to poison Upa, winning this fight. Next up is Ten Shinhan, who forces Frost into his final form due to his power. In terms of strength alone, he outclasses Frost, and Frost realizes that. So once again, he's gonna poison this dude. Ten doesn't notice until it's too late, but with his 3 eyes he's able to see the needle right as he's stabbed, thinking it was a technique rather than actual poison. He's defeated, but makes sure that Frost is disqualified as well. This means him and Upa will get to fight later on. Pycon is up against Magetta next, and of course, Pycon's gonna be able to come up with some insults against Magetta to actually defeat him. That's how he was able to hold off Janemba, so of course, he should be able to do it here too. There's nothing else to cover about this fight. Next up, he faces Kaba, and again, there's nothing really notable here. Pycon would probably take the win, but next he'll be facing Hit, and this kind of is an issue. Pycon actually does have something up his sleeve though. Taking some inspiration from Dragon Ball Heroes, we're actually giving Pycon a new form here, although the form doesn't really change much as far as I could tell. He has a state called Super Pycon, and this is what it looks like in Dragon Ball Heroes. Yeah, there's not really much change. I mean, his clothes are different, but that wouldn't really make sense to change here. The only difference that I could see is the lines on his eyes. So, we don't really know much about it, and it doesn't really change much in terms of features. But hey, him nor Dragon Ball Heroes are canon anyways, so really we could do whatever we want. For simplicity, and to help him power up, we're gonna say that this is his equivalent of Super Saiyan. Let's say he gets around a 50 times boost. Hit's actually pretty impressed with this power, and the best part is, since Pycon is still dead, stamina's not an issue for him. However, Hit's time skip is simply too strong. Pycon's disappointed that he's not able to win, because he still had something else that he didn't show off yet. And the next up is Krillin. Krillin also has a new trick up his sleeve. Thanks to Elder Kai, he actually did help power up him, Pycon, and Ten Shinhan. And right from the get-go, Krillin shows this off. There's no physical change, but in terms of power, everyone could tell that he's way stronger. He's surrounded by a white aura, stating that Elder Kai unlocked his potential. This is Ultimate Krillin. Kakarot's amazed to see the power of these two. He definitely needs to spar with them sometime to see how much they've grown. But still, Krillin's not going to take the win here. Hit is able to overcome him and win. Kakarot's actually a bit nervous. Sure, Super Saiyan God's pretty powerful, but Hit, he kind of seems like something else. Immediately Kakarot goes into God, and he's briefly able to keep up, but Hit takes the advantage once more. Kakarot needs to stay in. He's getting pretty desperate by this point. He is the strongest fighter there, and if he loses, well, Ten and Upa are up next and they don't stand a chance. While he hasn't really tried this before, he decides to test it out. On top of God, he begins using Kaioken. Although it's not a high level, it's only at a maximum of ×4 because he's not really sure how to control it. And it's pretty painful to use. But even with this desperate boost in power, it's not enough. Hit takes the win once more. It's the same with Upa, and even though Ten also has ultimate, he can't stand a chance either. Simply put, Hit sweeps Universe 7, causing them to lose. This means Champa's gonna get the wish, but Beerus isn't gonna let it slide. He doesn't have much time, but he wants to find a way to convince Champa to do something else. Wait, now that he thinks about it, why does Champa have to steal Earth? I mean, with his Super Dragon Balls, can't he just copy it or something? Plus, he tells Champa, Zeno would probably get pretty mad if he's meddling with the universes like that. He wouldn't want to anger Zeno, right? This is a fair point, and Champa considers it. I mean, stealing Earth is kinda unnecessary, so luckily Champa hears Beerus out and he's able to be convinced. He makes the more reasonable choice of asking for a copy of Earth, rather than just stealing it from Beerus and being an ass about it. Crisis averted. So everything's back to normal, right? Everything's all good. Well, not quite. Things may be settled now, but of course it's not going to stay like that. Following this arc, we'd normally have Zamasu, but that's not going to happen here. There is no time traveler to anger Zamasu, and sure, seeing Kakarot's power may sour him a bit, but I mean it's nothing to kill every mortal in the universe over. Zamasu just doesn't have the same motivation here to actually do what he wants. There's nothing that really ticks him off enough to send him in that direction, so luckily, that arc gets completely avoided, but one arc that won't be avoided is the Tournament of Power. Zeno saw this tournament and actually visited, deciding that it was pretty fun and he wanted to do something like that for himself. He's probably not going to form the same friendship with Kakarot here. Kakarot isn't Goku, as we've discussed many times in the scenario. He's much more respectful of the gods, and actually pretty fearful of Zeno once he hears who he is. But now he needs to find 10 fighters for the tournament, and that's going to be pretty tough. At first it's not so bad. The same people from the Universe 6 tournament are recruited, 10, Krillin, Upa, and Pycon. The first 3 of them actually suggest Roshi should be recruited too. He is pretty strong despite his age, and he'd probably be willing to fight alongside his 3 students. They ask, and he does join, much to Kakarot's surprise. He knows that Roshi trained the 3 of them, but he's never actually seen Roshi's power. This will be an interesting thing to see. Kakarot begins thinking, trying to find planets where he could find fighters on. That shouldn't be an issue though. He spent so much time with King Kai that he knows universal geography pretty well. Is geography even the right word for that? I don't know, I'm not an astronomer. Anyways, he knows his galaxy and some of the universe pretty well. For one, he knows Namek has some pretty strong fighters, so he decides to check that planet. The Earthlings are pretty amazed to see Namek. They didn't even know until now that this is where King Piccolo and Kami came from, or at least the person who used to be the 2 combined. The Namekians hear of this tournament and realize that it's pretty dire. They reveal that they can all fuse together and help that way. And they see Pycon wondering if he's a Namekian too, kinda racist. But they see he doesn't have the nose, ears, or the antenna, so he's just a random green guy. Jokes aside though, they can fuse together. They just need to know how many fighters Universe 7 needs. So, Kakarot and everyone will come back later to see them. Another good place to check is Yardrat. The people here aren't very strong, but in terms of technique, they make up for that. Naturally, the best person to recruit would be Paibara, and although he's hesitant, he decides to join because it's for the sake of the universe. They tell him they actually have Namekians joining who are going to fuse together, but they don't want to use all their Namekians because they're worried. If they're all fused together, they can't defuse. It turns out they're in good hands because Paibara can defuse them. How convenient. So, they go to Namek and tell everyone this. The Namekians can fuse together without worry. After the tournament, they'll be defused, returning the planet back to normal. And because of that, they decide it's probably best that everyone fuses into one Namekian, just so they have as much power as they could possibly get. As of now, the strongest person there is a Namekian named Nail, and he agrees to be the host. The Namekians begin fusing together, fusing into him. It's going to be a long process because there's a lot of people to fuse, so they'll give the Namekian some time. Okay, things are going good so far. They have Kakarot plus the original 5 people that he recruited. Now Paibara and Nail are joining too. That makes 8. Kakarot racks his brain trying to think of some other fighters. On Earth, there's not really anyone too strong. I mean, there is Kami, but they'd be better off fusing him into Nail, which they're hesitant about because they're not sure how it will affect Earth, and since it would be a lot to throw at Kami at once. Kakarot does remember one person. There was someone who isn't particularly strong and wasn't particularly a good person either. Some emperor named Frieza. He explains to everyone, this guy's a tyrant, the most wicked of the wicked. He's actually the person who destroyed his planet. However, the group votes against it. They don't want an evil person joining them, especially considering he might not even be that strong. But it's good that they know about Frieza. They could be concerned about him for later, but he'd be a bad pick. They'd be better off just reviving Boo purposefully. Well, there is Master Shen, but Ten decides it might be a good idea to recruit Chaozu. He's not particularly strong and he hasn't been training with Ten that much. He's only seen Ten when he's been on Earth. But he's an old friend who does have some good techniques at least, and that's the only other strong Earthling that they could think of. But even then, that only makes 9 fighters. Kakarot, Ten, Krillin, Roshi, Pycon, Paibara, Nail, Upa, and now Chaozu. It's up to Kakarot to find someone else strong in the universe. There has to be someone. Kakarot goes back to Whis. Maybe he can help. They gotta survey the universe. There has to be someone. Thankfully, Whis is able to help, but it's gonna take some time to search the whole universe. He pulls out his staff and they begin looking. It seems they already have most of the strong people. Kakarot's hoping that maybe they have people like Universe 6 did, maybe their own version of Hit. He knows they have their own version of Frost, but he's not particularly a good pick. And in terms of someone like Kaba, or Kakarot for that regard, well, Kakarot is the only Saiyan that's living, right? And this is where things get weird. Something catches Whis' eye that he didn't expect. Whis turns to Kakarot and actually has some good news, and also possibly some bad news to go along with it. The good news is, Whis did find someone who may be particularly strong and may be able to help. But the bad news is, well, Kakarot's not the only Saiyan left in the universe. This other strong fighter is also a Saiyan as well, and maybe the whole reason he survived is because he was banished to this planet. This of course comes as a shock to Kakarot. He thought he was the only one left, but Whis pulls out his staff. There's 2 left. One's an old Saiyan, not particularly helpful, but the other, named Broly, may actually be of use. Kakarot doesn't know what to think of this. There's 2 other Saiyans this whole time and he didn't know. And even if the Saiyan is strong, time's running out. He's not sure if he'll be able to convince him to join the tournament. Right away, Shin teleports Kakarot away. They need to make haste, and hopefully, they can convince this guy. With that, we'll end off this part here for now. So, do you think Broly is going to actually join the team? And if not, who do you think will join in his place? How strong do you think Nail will be once he's fully fused? And how do you think the team overall will perform? Leave any thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'll be sure to check them out to see what you guys think. As always, if you like the video, be sure to drop a like. And let's try to hit that like goal from the beginning of the video so we can get another part to this series. If you haven't already, why not subscribe? As well as hitting the bell icon to get notified about any future parts of this what if, or any other videos that I upload on my channel. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.